Hey there, welcome to part 2 of my 1974 Volkswagen Super Beetle wiring saga. Today we're going to delve into a literal rat's nest of wiring, so let's get started. Under the back seat on the driver's side, this group of wires here go into this insulated sheave or whatever, and that goes back to the engine compartment. And right underneath here is another insulated sheave which comes from the front of the car. Out here is a voltage regulator. You can see where one of the wires has been chewed all the way up to the regulator just about. This is a connector where battery voltage heavy cables come together inside here, and this little hot wire comes out of here, and you see where it's been chewed up and chewed in two. This is a relay for the rear window defrost, and its wires have been chewed completely off, and what's left is chewed up real bad, and it's also in very bad shape. And here's a wire that just goes nowhere, been chewed up. Here's another wire it's a green with red that has been spliced to a white wire that just goes forward on its own. So my goal is to work on getting these wires put back where they belong and spliced together. And then once I know all this is back the way it's supposed to be, then I'll put the battery back on it. Hopefully you can see a water line right here. This thing has filled up with water to about here, and that's why it's full of rust. But it's also full of rat and mice droppings. And I brought a vacuum to vacuum it out, but in the process I stopped and washed the vacuum out, and the filter element was full. So I tried to wash it and it just disintegrated. So I'm not going to vacuum this out without a filter, because this filthy, nasty crap is just going to get airborne, and I don't want to be breathing that. You can see where they ate through the seat belt. So now I'm just going to piddle with the wires and try to get them straightened up and hopefully figure things out. And I do got wiring diagrams. Last night I found some good ones. So I'm just going to turn off my camera and sit here and just troubleshoot, see how things go. I cleaned up all the marks where the rats have eaten through it. Wires that have nowhere to go for now, I went ahead and put a butt connector on there to help keep them from shorting out. I think I got everything straightened up. I think I got a pretty good understanding of the wiring. So I'm going to move forward under the dash. I'm going to trace this white wire that was hooked into the green and red and see where it goes. I went forward and I found the other end of this white wire. It is rat chewed all along it. Someone had tucked it into the carpet, but look at this. It's jammed into the seat slide. So that would just blow the fuse. If there was a fuse, it'll burn the car down. When you're wiring, you've got to be careful. You also want to run the right gauge of wire, because the gauge of wire that I think is going back to the starter back here is relatively heavy, and that's for energizing the solenoid on the starter. The gauge of wire on that makeshift solenoid underneath the front hood, trunk, or whatever we want to call it, was super thin. I mean, 18 gauge maybe, where this is 12 gauge. You're carrying all that amperage to energize that solenoid through some really thin wires for a decent size of a distance. You're just asking for it to melt, to short out against the frame of the machine, and now you have all sorts of problems. So just think things out. Fuses as close to the source as possible. As far as, you know, if you had a good 60 amp fuse come off the battery, I wouldn't complain, or 40 amp. But have fuses, you know, you got a long stretch of wire between the battery and the inside the cab, and no fuses anywhere, and this kind of crap where they run it underneath the seat, allow it to jam up. You're just asking for a fire. There's no need for stuff like that. Anyways, I just want to show you this. It's silly. It's totally silly. So let me continue on with my exploration. If you look right here, you'll see where you can see the bare wire. And I just pulled this brown wire, which has got a similar mark on the bottom side, off of it. They were stuck together. The brown wire is obviously spliced into it. And shorted out. I guess the brown probably shorted out. I don't know where they were running it. It's obviously not factory. That terrible looking, twisted together and then taped. This wire, the brown wire, probably shorted somewhere and it got hot and they fused together. The gray with the black stripe have to do with markers and tail lights. Things like that could very well have burned the whole car to the ground. Okay, I've removed the fuse panel. There are 2 screws through these holes right here that go up to these tabs right here, one on each side, and it drops down. These screw holes are for this plastic cover that went over the fuse box. Check out this wiring. That looks like it possibly goes up to the key switch. And then this wire, a red wire that's all chewed up, cruises along underneath the carpet, and it turns into an orange wire and continues back underneath the seat. So I guess I'll go ahead and trace it, see where it goes. So my red wire turns into an orange wire, which turns back into a red wire, which goes through a hole in the back of the car, assuming this is probably the crank wire for the starter. I could buy a new harness, and I know that, and we still might do that. I'm enjoying digging through it and figuring things out. So we may just fix things if we can, as long as we're not doing a lousy job. If we do an upstanding job and we can fix it reasonably, then that might just be what we'll go ahead and continue doing. Anyways, thank you for watching my video. Please hit the like button. Somehow that does something magical with YouTube. And then please subscribe to my channel. And remember, if you love life and learning new things, go aimless.com. For part 3, we're going to go ahead and tear the dash out so we can get a good look at the wiring under the dash. And also pull the interior out so that I can wash everything with the pressure washer. And then wind up with a clean work area to start reassembling things.